Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. I am very excited to be with you here today. We've got an incredible creative in the house. We're going to unpack a multitude of his projects. But before we jump in, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Lux Neuro, offering neurofeedback and counseling where your heart and mind align. For more information about what neurofeedback can do for you, listen to the Neurofeedback Stories of Transformation in the middle of this podcast. Neurofeedback effectively treats everything from insomnia, anxiety, depression, trauma, ADHD, and much more. Optimize your brain today. Special shout out to the Declan James watches. They are local and veteran owned, and 10% of all of their proceeds go back to the Navy SEAL Foundation. And last but not least, our very own Colorado Clownfish Swim School. They offer swim lessons and water safety training for all ages. They believe in life skills through sports, so go waterproof your family today. Without further ado, Julio Vincent Gambuto, welcome to TNT.
Hi, thanks for having me. I want to go to Clownfish School.
Hey, come through Colorado. They're in Littleton. They teach all ages. You'd be surprised how many adults don't know how to swim or swim well. So they actually get a large population of people over 13.
Love it. I am definitely over 13. Hi, nice to see you.
Yes, so I'm really excited about this conversation. Julio covers a lot of ground as a well-established creative. He's an author. He's a movie maker. He's a director. I actually watched his movie, Team Marco, last night. It was wonderful. I highly recommend it for the whole family. A very wonderful coming-of-age story with very 2025 themes of technology and connection and family weaved so elegantly through. But before we get into all these details, Julio, I like to hear about the human behind the mission before we get to the mission and the young version of yourself, because I think so much of who we are is written in the stars early. So give me young Julio.
Young Julio was very gay and very interested in writing down the story of all that was happening around him. So I took copious notes. I don't know. I was always journaling. I was always writing a poem. I was always writing a card to my mother. And it was just very, I was literate from a very young age. So, wildly also tried to fit in and never quite could. Had a perm in the 7th grade, was just kind of doing everything I could to, be cool and do the things. And but mostly, I'm a kid from the boroughs of New York City. I come from a big Italian family. I love food and wine and all the good things in life now. But at the time when I was younger, I was just sort of interested in like figuring out the world and trying to make sense of it all.
I love that. So early on, you were kind of destined to be a creative, a writer, a storyteller. Were you aware of that, like from young to like middle school to high school, or did that come later, like college years?
I think so. I mean, I was definitely aware of it. I don't know that I understood that it was going to be a life. I don't know that I understood that you could have a life doing it or being it. It really took me a very long time to refer to myself as an artist or to understand myself as an artist in any way. But, as a younger person, I very much wanted to find a way that I could write and be expressive and sort of be creative as a job. I just didn't know what that was. And of course, I think you're younger than me, but generally our age, like we sort of grew up as technology was changing. And so we've all had to kind of adapt to find the tools that work to be expressive in the ways that we want to be. And so that hasn't stopped and continues to be changing all the time.
Amen. It's so real. Yeah, we've got to be close in age. I'm 44. I'm one of those that's whatever.
I'm 46.
About age.
Yeah,
oh, okay. Yeah. So I saw that you worked at Abercrombie as a greeter and I worked at the Guest store. So I was like, my human. We were at the mall at the same time for sure.
We totally were. I totally would have like tried to get you to come to the 8th grade dance with me or something like that.
I would have said yes, especially if you were rocking Abercrombie. I was one of those. No, that's hilarious. It's a wild conversation. This is why I was so excited to connect with you on this technology and the impact and influence and how different it is from when we were in high school. And we're both creators, so like it's wonderful for us as entrepreneurs to have this medium and this opportunity to get our creativity and art out there so much easier and reach so many more people. And then on the flip side, the juxtaposition is all the crap comes with it. And it's starting to our younger, there's no filter for our young people. So it's a really hard balance. So I'm pumped to learn more about your book. Please unsubscribe. Thanks. It's now available on Amazon, and you've got your press with Simon & Schuster, which is huge. So you've got a lot of notable best-selling, all the things that come with it. But I'm really curious on what like initially inspired this for you, because this outlet is so beneficial for us as entrepreneurs in this space.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a push and pull and a real, it is a very bittersweet sort of moment for us in the world, right? We have access to our audiences directly. We have access to all these tools to be creative, but it comes with a lot of, as I say in the book, bullshit. The book really came into the world because before the pandemic, I was sort of just running and going and constantly sprinting, and life was just a calendar of professional commitments and social engagements. And I was sort of raised, not to anyone's fault, but I was sort of raised in these environments that were super competitive and highly energetic and fast paced, as they would say in a job description or something. And so I was just used to kind of life being that way. And I don't know that it was making me happy. And I don't know that I was aware of that really until the pandemic hit. And like billions around the world, right, it hit and it stopped life. And I found myself in a small apartment in Manhattan, just sort of really, I think crumbling is not the right word, but being forced, like so many other people, to kind of be introspective and understand what was really important in life. And was I accessing it? Was I getting it? Was I creating it? Was I sort of being the person I wanted to be in the world? And it sort of kicked off this very long process for me of sort of reevaluating my life and to your point about the tools, like how I use the tools and how I, what messages I am putting out into the world and how I'm doing this thing called life and work and tech. And so that's really where the book was birthed. And so, now we're on the other side of that, obviously, but 5 years later, but I think the lessons from it are really, really resonant still.
Absolutely. I can't believe that was 5 years ago, the pandemic. Like
Right.
it feels like it was a long time ago, but it feels like it was yesterday. It's a weird mix of emotions, but it was a magical time in the sense that it made us all pause in one capacity or another and check in with our mental health, whether it was conscious or unconscious, forced, or you chose to do it. But being still is something that I've always worked on. And to this day, kind of like you, because I came from a busy athletic family and more is more always in every scale. And it's still hard for me to pause and sit down. As a creator, I'm really curious on your own mental health journey. Like creating in the art has to be some part of the outlet that's good for you, but then it's also the stressor. How did you balance that as a young person? We didn't have the tools that we had now.
I mean, we didn't. And I also think we also didn't have the emotional tools, right? I don't think anyone teaches you how to be a creative, teaches you how to be a productive artist who can put things into the world and also make a living and also maintain your mental health in a way that's, easy, productive, positive. The list goes on, right? I think I was very fortunate to be surrounded by some really incredible people and teachers, and I had really good relationships in my life, whether it was a coach or it was a tutor or it was my history teacher who was my guidance counselor, any of that, right? Those are such important roles for young people. And so I think I kind of knew it, I've always been kind of 40 years old, right? I was kind of 40 years old when I was 12. So I kind of knew and understood that these relationships were going to be important in my life. Anyway, I think mental health wise, I've recently discovered this great, and I'm going to get it wrong, forgive me, but something something like, the opposite of depression is not happiness. The opposite of depression is expression. And I sort of have been living by that now, understanding that maybe the sort of dips and the valleys that I've experienced over the years are not a result of not being happy or not being a good person or feeling bad or any of that, but actually just moments where I didn't feel fully expressed as an artist, as a creative. And so I think that's an interesting and more kind of an empowering interpretation of mental health and the battles that we all sort of fight to maintain it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that through line, that human experience is always a common denominator. I wish people talked about more, because wherever you come from or wherever you're going, we are all in that human experience and sharing those emotions. And I think 2020 really put that on blast, because we did have to pause and connect in any way that we could at the time. And I agree with the expression. And it's funny because one of my favorite songs of all time, and being that we're kind of the same generation, is Salt and Peppa's Expression. And I grew up with that like in my ear on my tape, and I listened to it. Like, we drove to a lake because my parents are water skiers. Anyways, 2 hours each way. So and then Madonna came out with Express Yourself. And so it was like, oh, this theme like kept running through, and it didn't make sense until I was, I don't even know, 30s or 40s. But again, the messages are there and there's conversation, but now we're in a space where we can really dive into this. When do you think, like, at what age you were really conscious about your mental health and you were making intentional steps to make sure you were on point?
So, I want this to be an exercise in honesty and authenticity. So it's very young, unfortunately.
Okay.
My parents went through a very quite toxic divorce, very over the top, very Italian, very sort of operatic, and I was coming out at the same time. And so my early 20s were just this emotional firework of angst and anxiety and narrative and nonsense and all sorts of things. And so I really sought mental health professionals early on in my life, because I thought, oh my God, someone's got to be able to help me with this, because I don't know that I can navigate this myself. And I found a really wonderful group when I was in college, a conversation group. It was, what you'd call a support group, but it was really a conversation group. We met once a week. And that group really helped me on my coming out journey and sort of helped as I processed the divorce. And then that led to sort of engaging in therapy and engaging in just the overall conversation about mental health. And, I've been a practitioner of therapy for 20 years now, because I just love working with a therapist.
Yeah.
I sort of look at them as a coach, or look at them as just an important key player of my life. And obviously, the conversations around that world teach you a new vocabulary, and it teaches you sort of a new way of being. And so I credit all of that to kind of helping me through that period of my life, but then sort of introducing me to sort of how I could have the tools to live in a better way.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I think that vulnerability in the journey is really a key piece, not only because I think it allows, when you open up, people, can hear this conversation, then open up in their own space, but that power of community and having support as an athlete. I'm here for therapy, like a coach or someone leading the way is very familiar to me. So that was an easy transition from my own life. I also have divorced parents, and I almost wish my journey in mental health would have started earlier. I had a little bit with meditation and athletics, but nothing as intentional. So I think that the beauty, the trauma to triumph can be, as a creator, that some of those experiences, or all of them, had to have helped you as a creator to be more empathetic, to share a story deeper. Was that true for you?
Absolutely. I mean, it just sort of made me into, the man I am today, and I like the man I am today. And so that was a journey, right? Because that's not always the case. It's funny, because when I was directing the movie that you were talking about, my first feature film, I, as a director, empathy is your greatest skill, and you've got to be able to sort of understand what the audience is feeling at any given moment, and hope and work with the actors and work with the technicians and craftspeople around you to make sure that connection is being created. But that's not necessarily the role of a producer. And so I was playing both roles. And I found that very difficult because what makes you good at one makes you bad at the other. And so, that's a generalization, but in general, that's how I felt. And so, I kind of had to land somewhere after the experience, and I kind of landed with a much deeper appreciation for my own ability to be empathetic and my own ability to connect with, either performers or with the audience. And sort of leaning more into that now, especially with my writing and with my work, and sort of leaning out of the roles and responsibilities that require me to not necessarily use that skill, so.
Yeah. I just think it's so critical nowadays because our young humans are such a conscious consumer. They've grown up with social media. They know they can see through the bullshit right away. And again, as an athlete, I could tell which coaches I bought into and which ones I didn't. So if they're Googling as a leader, how to survive trauma or how to teach lacrosse, and you've never actually done it, all people see through it, but our young people, especially if there's no authentic journey there, it bleeds through in everything you do. And it's surprising in this day and age how many people really are just learning how to be a leader and doing this, and there's not real authentic reps there. So the good news is if we've survived some things, we can show up that much more ahead to share this journey and the story and connect.
And it's important for young people to understand, that when they see images of a writer, an author, a podcast host, whatever it might be in the media, that there's an entire story behind that person, and that they did not sort of appear that way at all moments in their life, and that it is a journey. But I think young people are so much more savvy now than we were. And I've got 6 nephews and niece, and 5 nephews and a niece, and I watch them, and sort of what they understand about the world at their age is just it blows my mind, But you're right, their bullshit meter is on high. They understand, and I try to teach them as much as I can to sort of refine that bullshit meter as well, and to take a look and understand, especially with respect to tech, what are the messages coming at them? What are the brands coming at them? What are the images coming at them? And how can they be a little bit more, even more savvy about understanding the incentives behind those things, understanding who's behind them, understanding why they're being served, what they're being served. But that's a journey as well. We've never had a generation before that's facing what they face every day on their screen. So.
Absolutely. It's wild. I have a 2-year-old niece, and she knows the YouTube button on the phone and then knows how to navigate. I'm like, I don't know if that's good or bad, but I also hail from marketing and branding. So I'm with you. I mean, quite literally started this podcast, seemingly imposing things can't harmoniously coexist, because I have marketing, branding, health and wellness. So it's sexy, but there's always an intense side to all of it. And I'm sure being in Hollywood or New York City, like, you're around these creatives and everything's bright lights and it looks beautiful, but there's always kind of this other side to things. It's pretty tough to navigate. Do you want to share a little bit about your essay about gaslighting? Because I read that as well, and your transparency and your writing is beautiful, but I love how you go straight to the point and lean in. I think it's a really great take on things. It's not too intense, but not too lighthearted, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. I mean, I sort of come from the marketing world as well originally, and so I think we probably see things from a similar vantage point. The essay that I wrote, so in the story at the origin of the book, what I didn't say is that the essay was really sort of the trigger for the book, from a work perspective. I had posted on medium.com, I mean, maybe 5 or 6 times over the years. I had joined 5 or 6 years prior to 2020. I wrote an essay about Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election that maybe, 50 people read. And I was like, whoa, I went viral. It was that kind. I never sort of aimed to write online in the way that it developed. And then in 2020, basically what happened was about a month into the crisis, March 2020, you remember those first few weeks, all the big brands were sending out emails to say like, hey, we know we're a car company, but you should really wash your hands. And, we know we're a clothing company, but remember to put soap on your left hand and soap on your right hand. And it felt like the great big brands of the world were with us and understood what was going on. And then a few weeks later, I get this email from J. Crew that's like, hey, 40% off, you know? And I was just incensed. I was just like so furious because I just felt so manipulative, and it just felt so tone deaf to what was happening in the country. And here in Manhattan, I mean, I couldn't even get toilet paper, let alone buy a $300 cashmere sweater from J. Crew. And so I wrote this essay called "Prepare for the Ultimate Gaslighting," and it was really about two things. One, it was about, hey, we should all be cautious and wake up to the fact that when we go back to normal, who benefits most is big business and big brands and the government, to sort of get this economic engine up and running again. And so in that part of my brain, it was really about the economics of what was happening. But in the other part of my brain, or at least in my heart, the question asked, or the essay asked the question, like, who do we want to be? Who do we want to be as people, as a society? And now's a good time to ask that question of ourselves. What do we want to take forward from this crisis? What do we want to learn from this moment? And do we want to take forward all the habits and behaviors and constant go, and constant consumption and constant need, that we've been sort of practicing, at least that I was. And so, I really kind of credit the essay to inspiring the book, but the essay went nuts. It was like, I put it on a Friday morning, and like, it was just weird. It was like watching some weird, slot machine go. And I was like, what is happening? I've never seen numbers like that. And then it had gone, in 2 days, it had gone around the world to 98 countries. 20 million readers. Now I think it's 21 million readers. And like, look, yeah, then as a creator, right, the number was exciting, but what was more exciting was just the idea that I sort of got to talk to that many people in that moment. And, plenty of people, especially in the entertainment business, are like, well, if you can recreate that. And I'm like, you can't recreate that. Like, that's just not something that you can get up every day and be like, I'm going to knock it out of the park today with this essay. So I don't try to recreate it on a daily basis. I think that's kind of a fool's errand, but I am really proud of it, and was really proud of the message.
I love it so much. If you're out there, I'll put the link in when I post this up, but it's just so great. It hit home for me just because, like you, I'm straddling these two worlds, and I'm not really opposed to either. And yet I'm very much an advocate for the consumer, for the human, for ask the questions, take care of yourself. Like we're being sold a dream 24/7. And I wanted to be on the good side of that. Hence the podcast.
Absolutely.
So you got to keep the convo out here. I got to poke the bear a little bit, but did you have any aspirations of being sponsored or working with any of those companies after you blasted them?
I mean, I couldn't, right? So it was just like, okay, well, I guess that's never going to happen. It's funny because I got so many emails and I got so many messages from all over the world, and 90% of them were very supportive. Like, oh, whoa, like, thank you. That's what I was thinking, but I couldn't say it. I couldn't figure it out. Or I couldn't figure out how to say it. But then, of course, the other 10% were just like, fuck you. People were just like not happy because it was political and it was provocative. And but yeah, I think, one of the things that I did see during the pandemic that was so upsetting, and it wasn't necessarily about J. Crew, was that I have a really good friend who works for a major soda company, and they didn't give them masks. Like, they didn't give them PPE. Wow. They didn't give them anything. Wow. And then you would go on their website and there were just photos of people in masks and all sorts of. And so I just sort of felt like there was this massive disconnect between what brands were saying that they were doing to be helpful and to, literally save people's lives, and what they were doing or how they were behaving. And I think it was just, the time has come and gone, but it's an important reminder to question the things that we see, to question the messages that we're getting, to question, as you're saying, the dream that we're being sold 24 hours a day. And to remember that, our dreams are quite personal, and for the most part, they're deeply held here, and we can get up every day and function and live in them without necessarily all the nonsense that we're being sold all the time.
Absolutely. Amen. It's so real. I think the upside of social media is then nowadays TikTok's going to be like, okay, soda machine or company, machine's probably a more appropriate word. Here's my friend that works there. They just filmed no one's got masks, and look at all this side by side of all the, their PR company that put this out. Like all those things that, the companies can just focus on productivity and there's no human experience, considered in any of their thing. That doesn't work anymore. And leadership is failing. Like there's some massive gaps in the game,
Massive.
business wise. Yeah, that it's not going to work very long. And so I think
And they don't see it. And I don't understand sorry, I cut you off. I didn't mean to.
No, you're good. Follow your heart.
I don't understand why they don't see it. Right. And obviously this is the difference between the perspective of an artist and the perspective of a CEO, but I don't understand why those conversations are not necessarily being had about connecting with customers and consumers at an actual human level, right? Like I think customer service has gotten worse in the last 5 years. I think, companies are now going to use AI for commercials. The brand is just completely not aligned with the experience in the store and online with what's happening when you actually interact with them. I mean, I've been waiting on a mattress from JCPenney for like 6 weeks now, and I can't get a single human being to talk to me.
Wow.
I don't know why that is so undervalued, right? The ability to talk to your consumers, to talk to your customers, to build loyalty in an authentic way. And so, Kristen, I'm not an anti-capitalist. I'm not someone who doesn't believe in business or in making money or in following your creative dreams or any of it, right? I just think we have to do it in a more responsible way. And when I say more responsible, I simply mean a more connected, authentic, intentional way.
Yes.
We've got to be able to actually understand that there are human beings on the other side of these screens, of these phones, of these microphones across the country. There are historical reasons for that. There are economic reasons for that. And we're in the situation we're in for a number of logical reasons and evolutions. But along the way, we seem to have sort of lost this idea that we are all in this together. And that's a really, really important idea to stay aware of. So
I couldn't agree more. And I think you alluded to this in your gaslighting essay, but vote with your dollar. Whatever side you're on, it doesn't have to be like vote for this person or that person. I don't really care who you're voting for, to be quite honest. I care about your core values. But just be conscious in things that you support. And again, this is where I'm so optimistic for our young people that have this transparency in their life through social media or conversation or what have you. They'll intentionally go buy a company that is connected or ask questions that we didn't know how to ask, or they'll dig in and do research on the CEO and see if they recycle or hurt animals or whatever. And they won't do it. Like they'll spend $5 for something local and small owned versus these big brands. So I think the natural selection, or like I like to call graceful disruption, is happening no matter what. But I do think it's ultra important for us as humans on the mic or in front of any sort of creative outlet that we are promoting these messages, but more importantly, we're walking in it through our own art, through our own voice, through our own projects that are coming out, because people see it, people know, and they know how to decipher. So I think this antiquated leadership is fading out, and I really think it's going to happen faster than they're paying attention.
I hope so. I have a lot of faith in our young people. I think they get ragged on a lot, and sometimes it's
it's due.
Sometimes there's fun to be made, right? But just because their experiences are so different than ours,
Totally.
And especially for those of us who grew up in the '90s, like they're just a little alien to us. But I do think that they are much more connected to their values and much more connected to the universality of the experience around them. And for whatever that means for you might be different than for me, but ultimately they understand connectedness. And I think they're really looking, and they're savvy enough to do that research. They're savvy enough to pay attention to it. They're savvy enough to kind of to get in the game and play it, play it for a win. So I'm hopeful.
I am too. I am too. We got some work to do, but honestly, if we can work together, as cliche as it is, with all the different generations, the generation above us and the new one coming out, and etc., there's so much to learn from one another, and there's so much intel to gain from those perspectives that I hope we continue to see that blending and open-mindedness. I do want to come back to the book just briefly because I want you to lean in, tell us a little bit more about it, and who's your ideal reader? Who's this for?
Sure. So it's a big lime green book.
Hey.
It's called Please Unsubscribe, Thanks: How to Take Back Our Time, Attention, and Purpose in a Relentless World. The book is really a field guide. It's a how-to, but I didn't want to be sort of like, loaded with tips and tricks and things like this. It's really kind of the first half is an explanation and an understanding of the economics and historical forces that kind of got us to this place where our world is so relentless and overwhelming and asking us constantly to process it and negotiate it and debate it and engage in it. And then the second half of the book is what we can do about it, both on an individual level and on a collective level. And I think we've been sold this like very, very sexy story that our individual behaviors are the only things that matter, and that somehow we can't touch institutional change, we can't touch structural change, we can't touch shared commitments like laws and public policy. But I think that's obviously bullshit, right? It's like, these are the things that run industry. These are the agreements and commitments that run our behaviors collectively. And we've got to be able to speak our truth and speak that truth to power so that we can make major policy changes that are going to save lives, affect lives, and stop the sort of constant exploitation of what I call in the book sort of all the bullshit, which sort of gets in the way of us leading more sort of happy and meaningful lives. So the book goes to many different places. It's social commentary, and it's a bit of humor, and it's a bit of memoir. But for the most part, it's really about kind of how we find ourselves in this modern moment and what we can do about it.
I love that modern moment. I'm going to reuse that. That's the realist. I think it's a really great guidebook. I think it's a really great tool also for parents or leaders to read and then relate to the younger generation, and also open up doors to have that conversation around things. Because again, I think this might be a book I would have read in my late teens and 20s, where now it might be even applicable for like our early teens, or kids getting their first cell phone and whatnot, because that consciousness, and then ideally they've read it before they're 18 and go out there and vote and do their thing. So anyways, I think that's really great.
The consciousness is what I'm most after, right? Like that's really the game I want to play, right? Is to get people aware of their own behaviors, of our individual behaviors, of our collective behaviors, because it starts as habits really early on in our lives, right? Where we sort of put a certain value on shopping, or we put a certain value on status, or we put a certain value on government or XYZ, you name it, right? And we sort of then remain on autopilot for so much of our lives until we get gracefully disrupted at some point, right? And so the book is really about disrupting ourselves and disrupting the infinite loops and the constant cycles that we're in all the time, that lead to to a lack of satisfaction and a feeling like, oh my God, I can't change anything about my life. I think that's probably more intense now, to be specific, in a subscription economy, like in a world that asks you to commit with a click, to commit to your habits, to commit to behaviors. And I'm not saying, unsubscribe from this podcast or anything. I'm saying,
thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. I'm saying get rid of and cut the tethers and cut the ties to the nonsense that doesn't really bring value into your life, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, whatever it might be. And find the voices like yourself, and find the people who are inspiring and who lift you up, and double down on them, right?
Yeah.
Get rid of the nonsense and double down on the things that are really meaningful for you.
Yeah, attention is our currency nowadays, and everybody's vying for it, including ourselves. And that's, it's hard to even take time for ourselves and pause. So yes, I'm here for you. The consciousness and the awareness is huge. Would you consider, I'm really curious, yourself a spiritual, religious person, or what's your connection to universe, or what's your grounding base?
Yeah, I was raised Roman Catholic. I was an altar boy, and I was sort of told what my beliefs were. And then as I grew older, I kind of started to decide for myself. I'm a practicing Episcopalian now, and I don't really practice that often. But I do find I do believe in a shared truth among us, right? I believe that there's a oneness to our experience, and some people call that oneness God, and some people call it the universe, and some people call it electricity, whatever you want, right? It's like, but there's something that connects all of us. And so I try to be as practical about it as possible on a day-to-day basis, right? Like, what is that connective tissue, and how can my behaviors reinforce that or amplify that? Even when you're calling it God, and you're calling it Allah, and you're calling it, yoga, and you're calling it something else, right? Sounds a little cliche, but that's kind of just where I sit and where I stand. So.
Amen. I say God, universe, Madonna, because I'm a big Madonna fan.
Yeah.
And she was like our original disruptor, and telling Pepsi what's up. So she was our original checkpoint. But yeah, it's really real. And as marketing professionals, I think we can deeply agree that the label doesn't really matter that much. Like, whatever the product is in the box, or whatever you're buying into, you can shine it up or tear it down, or it's still the same shit. So it's
but look at like thousands of years of like war about the label. It's like, okay,
yes.
what? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. It's a wild to think how much time and energy and resources we spend debating the label when we're never really going to know the answer anyway. So it's funny, because when you exist in these creative and artistic circles, right, everyone talks about, like, putting things out to the universe and putting things out, right? But then when you talk to a religious person, they're like, "Oh, I'm just going to pray to God." And you're like, they're the same thing. Right? It's like they're completely the same thing. But if you ask one, they think the other is crazy, right? They're just like, "Oh, that, too much religiosity for me. I can't handle it. I don't pray. What is that?" And then the other person's like, "Oh, that's so woo woo." And it's like, they're all the same thing. At least in my opinion. I'll clarify there.
I'm totally with you. I mean, basically just believing something bigger than yourself is the through line. Like, there's bigger stuff going on, be a good person and skip it. Everything. Yeah, I'm with you. I went on this deep dive over the holidays, the Prince of Egypt and these documentaries on Mary. And I was like, God, I didn't grow up religious. I would identify more spiritual, but I'm here for, again, however we package it, but the destruction and the war over our entire lifetimes and then some. And it's really unfathomable to think of how something that's ideally so good can be so deeply destructive to, like, the molecular level. So that's a whole other podcast, but we'll save that for round two. I am curious. This is my favorite question as we wrap up, and I'm curious what you had to say. What is success to you?
It's a great question. It has changed wildly in the last 5 years. If I'm being honest with myself and with you, I think before the experiences that prompted this book, I would say that success is money. Money is success. Success is, a 3-bedroom apartment in Manhattan and a doorman and being on the cover of Vogue. And I think that I fight every day, because I feel like those things are still instincts in me, right? Those things are still sort of active, but I try to stay as aware and conscious as I can about them. But now, success is really sort of the richness of life in love and in relationships, right? And it's being surrounded by my family and friends. One of the greatest things that sort of has shifted since I wrote this book, and probably during the period in which I was writing it, is finding love and partnership in a way that I haven't in the last few decades of my adult life. And so, that perspective has changed a lot, because some people are great at being single. Some people are quite fulfilled being single. I just wasn't one of them. And I really wanted a partner and a relationship that was the basis and the source of home for me. And I've been able to create that in the last few years in a way that I wasn't able to do that for the last few the years prior. And so that's a really great success in my life. And I think, if I died tomorrow, I will be grateful that was part of my life experience.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think I've asked this every show, and that was a fave answer right there. I like how that
Thanks.
came full circle. I'm still here for you to get on Vogue though. So if you get on the cover, sign a copy. You can have both, my friend. Like let's lean into both things. I do have actually one more question.
Good. Turmeric and tequila.
Yeah, you can have it all. And still be grounded though. You're a very gracious, successful human, which I appreciate. I do want to lean in just because we have a lot of entrepreneurs and creators that listen to our show. Yeah. Do you have any good advice? Because the movie space, these are really, really competitive spaces. Do you have any good advice for someone that's up and coming or really trying to break through?
Oh, take a deep breath. Right. It is a marathon. It is a marathon, not a sprint. I, like so many other people, was obsessed with my age and getting older and my success compared to my age. And the truth is, I made my first feature film when I was 41. I wrote my first book when I was 44. It's now on the shelves at 46. I mean, these things just take time. And if you do them in a heartfelt way and you do them with grace and you do them as best you can, they take longer. And so I just think it's an important part of the journey to be patient with yourself and to be kind to yourself. There just were many moments where I was not. And I kind of just wish I was a little bit more patient with myself. And it looks really different than your friends and family, right? It looks really different than, your brother-in-law who's in finance or something like that. Like our lives just look different. And if you hold yourself to the same standards with respect to timelines and what it looks like, you're going to be really, really upset along the way. But if you can kind of release that and, in my verbiage, unsubscribe from it, you can really kind of give yourself a little bit more breathing room. And I think that's a really important part of the journey of it all.
Absolutely. Stay in it. I've had to tell myself this many times, and we still are, but like you, we will be running towards Vogue at some point soon. Hit us with website handles, details. You're speaking at a big event coming up. Hit us with
sure. Yes, I'm speaking at South by Southwest. I can't wait. That's in March. I'm giving an hour talk all about unsubscribing and the value of it in the world. I'm excited. I cannot wait for that talk. Otherwise, all my projects are at juliovincent.com, my first and middle name altogether.com. I'm on Instagram. Facebook is pretty personal, and I'm on Medium, obviously, and the rest I've sort of gotten rid of. But you can check me out there. And thanks for having me. This has been a blast.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it. I'm going to make a prediction. I actually think now that South by Southwest, you're speaking these and it's more, common to have this conversation around unsubscribing. I bet some of these big brands are going to reach out to you as a consultant, as a creator or something that embraces the unsubscribe, even though they're still going to try and sell it. I don't know. I'm just putting this out to the universe. I have a feeling their opposite's going to happen. And some of these big brands are going to reach out and be like, all right, why are you saying this? How do we navigate? What do we do? I have a feeling.
All this shit about us and how can we make a change? I would love to have that conversation with them. So
let's go. Tag me when you do. I want to give a quick thank you to our sponsors, Lux Neuro, Neurofeedback and Counseling. Lux Neuro wants to meet you. If you're ready to transform your life, visit them at luxneuro.com and schedule a consultation today. Colorado Clownfish Swim School, Julio will be there. Swim lessons and water safety training for all ages. They believe in life skills through sports, so go waterproof your family today at coloradoclownfish.com. Julio, you're awesome. I love your energy, your humility. I can't wait to see what you do next, and please keep in touch with us.
Thanks. Same here. Be well.
Thank you, my sir. Cheers.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.